We have to be just as brutally honest about our quarterbacks and tight ends as we were about the running backs and wide receivers this week. So we're going to start out at tier 1 with the tight ends. Trey McBride, George Kittle. These two guys are just the best performing tight ends in fantasy right now. Bottom line, end of story. Trey McBride almost feels like a lock for about 20 points at least in fantasy because his quarterback can finally see over the line of scrimmage because he's not a shrimp. And that's the real big thing with Jacoby Brissett, is that he offers the touchdown upside that Kyler couldn't because he couldn't see over his line of scrimmage in the red zone. It's very simple. So against Jacksonville, I don't worry about matchup. I know McBride's going to be great. And then George Kittle versus Carolina, that matchup on Sunday night, I really like it from a San Fran perspective because I don't think that Carolina is going to be able to keep up because they're just not used to the national spotlight like the 49ers are. And Kittle with Purdy back, it unlocks an entirely different level of upside for him. So having Purdy back and having Kittle in this matchup, this is the top 2 play to me. Dropping down to our next tier, we've got Tyler Warren coming off the bye week at number 3 and Brock Bowers at 4. So here's my rationale for this one because they both have tough matchups. Tyler Warren is just on an offense I feel like I can trust more to give me a 17 or 20 point ceiling. And I just haven't seen that since Brock Bowers returned with that 40 plus point game. Now, of course, you can't forget about that, right? But my thing with Bowers is that his offense is getting worse by the week. And his offensive line is really bad. So you look back to that game against Denver where Brock Bowers had a bad game. Well, that was because the pass rush was so dominant, they had to use him in pass blocking situations. Kind of seeing the same thing lining up here for Cleveland. They're going to need a guy to chip Myles Garrett. And I think Brock Bowers could take those duties in a lot of situations this week, lowering his overall ceiling underneath Tyler Warren's. Travis Kelce at 5. And Mark Andrews at 6. These two guys, honestly, you can rank them how you want to. My view on it is this. I've been wrong all season about Travis Kelce, and many of you understand this. I was wrong, and I continue to be wrong, so he's going to rise up in my rankings because the guy's ceiling is still about 25 points. He's done very well this year for the most part. They are really fighting for their playoff lives, which is a crazy thing to think about with the Chiefs, but that's the reality. So they will use Travis Kelce in this matchup versus Indianapolis. Plenty, I'm sure. And then Mark Andrews at number 6. The matchup is great, and Mark Andrews is a touchdown threat with Lamar. Now, there's an injury with Lamar. We'll have to discuss that a little bit later when we discuss quarterbacks. I'm not ultimately concerned of his availability and what that's going to bring to us when week 12 finally rolls around. I think Mark Andrews with Lamar is going to continue to play, and it's also going to continue to provide upside with Mark Andrews moving forward. And at number 7 to round out the tier, Dallas Goedert. And he's going to Dallas this week to play the Cowboys. Now, he belongs, I think, in this tier because we have seen that ceiling of about 20 points because a lot of times that is a threat in their offense. You get down there in the red zone, and then him and Jalen Hurts have that little pitch action that they do. And I think that's relatively sustainable, but what we don't see always is a bunch of targets for Dallas Goedert over the middle. And if there are targets, sometimes he does drop them over the middle as well. So Goedert, not as consistent as these other guys, but I would say that he belongs in the same tier because he does provide that upside. And I want to go back to Kelce versus Andrews. I do think that I'm probably on the right side of most people of this one, but I do want to see. And I'm going to go do a poll on fsroundup.com right now. So I'm going to type in Travis Kelce, then go to chat, then start a poll, and I'm going to do it for week 12, and I'm going to line him up with Mark Andrews. Go vote on this one. It's free to vote, free to start your own poll. I'm very curious to see what the rest of the community's reaction would be to this one right here. And if you want access to my weekly top 250 rankings, the automatic waiver tool, the comparison feature, and the league sync up feature, you can do that with the premium subscription, or if you just want the full team breakdown from me. I've been doing live streams of these lately, have tons of fun doing them. We're getting you ready for your championship. So whether that's trade ideas, waiver ideas, anything to make your team better, you can also do a team breakdown from me as well. And make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already to show your support. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got Dalton Schultz tonight and then Hunter Henry at number 9. So Dalton Schultz is the tight end that you want in this game. No Dalton Kincaid once again, and I would definitely not play Dawson Knox or Jackson Hawes over Dalton Schultz, who has done very well, particularly with Davis Mills at quarterback. And of course, it's Davis Mills again. I do see the upside here because it's at home, and this is a really tough place to play. And it's against Buffalo's defense, which is easily beatable. So I really do see potential success in this one. And either way, he's been a really consistent target for this offense for the last month and a half. And then Hunter Henry at Cincinnati, matchup definitely enhances his upside here. I mean, the upside, I would say, is 20-plus points, but we know the floor is really ridiculously low. And with the return of Kayshon Boutte, I do wonder what that target share is going to look like this week for everybody. Not just Henry, every single player in Patriotsville. I think that it's very questionable what the target share will look like moving forward. So I've got to mitigate the risk a little bit having him here at 9. Noah Fant at 10 and K. Dotton at 11. I'm actually kind of big on Noah Fant this week. Listen, he has opportunity without Jamar Chase. And whether it is Joe Burrow, who practiced fully on Wednesday, or whether it is Flacco again, either way, you're going to get upside, right? Because no Jamar Chase, you've got T. Higgins getting locked up all day by Christian Gonzalez. Yeshivas and Noah Fant, they have opportunity this week. So I like the opportunity here for these Bengals players, and Noah Fant is the tight end that you want. And then K. Dotton at 12 at the Los Angeles Rams. This matchup is tough. I will say that. I think that the Sunday night performance here, Los Angeles is going to win this game. But Tampa's in kind of a must-win situation. Carolina is keeping pace with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's the only real threat in the division, but they need to win. And this is a tough game. So I would imagine K. Dotton, too important to this offense to go through 2 bad weeks in a row. So I do think that Baker probably gets back to throwing to him this week, just trying to move the chains with Otton, because that's what Otton does a lot. Last week, there was a lot of big plays to guys like Sean Tucker, to guys like Emeka Egbuka, a lot of these big plays. And I don't think that that's going to happen again against the Los Angeles Rams defense. They're going to be needing chain movers, and that's where Otton really comes in. So I think Otton probably rebounds this week. Jake Ferguson at 12 to round out the tier, and he's going to play the Philadelphia Eagles at home. Now, I briefly considered having Jake Ferguson in a tier below. And the reason why is because I think this is a matchup that could be similar to that Broncos game where a couple weeks ago when he played the Broncos, he blanked. And the reason why is because he had to be back in practice protection because that pass rush is so freaking elite. You can't have your tight end just running routes all day. It does feel similar to that. So that was the reason I was concerned, and I wanted to bump him down. But again, when you look at Ferguson on this season, he's been a red zone threat, and he's gotten games where he's had like 7 to 9 targets. So I don't put that out of the realm of possibilities, but I am worried about Ferguson this week, and that's why he's at 12. So dropping down to our next tier, we've got Harold Fannin Jr. at 13, and I actually ranked him above Njoku this week, who Njoku is injured right now. We don't know if he's going to play as of the time of this filming. All I know is that he missed practice on Wednesday. So for that reason, Fannin actually gets a bump this week. Because if Njoku plays, I'll prefer Fannin. I do think that's probably the way I would lean. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to be 100% brutal with you guys. I don't know. Cleveland's tight end room is so hard to predict. They're both involved on a weekly basis. Sometimes Fannin gets the touchdown. Sometimes Njoku gets the touchdown. Either way, though, it's very hard to know which way this team is going to be leaning. And you throw in a new quarterback with Shedeur Sanders. Who does he prefer? Maybe he prefers Jerry Jeudy above all these guys. I don't know. It's very confusing, but they both still belong here back-to-back in this tier. Juwan Johnson at 15 to round out this tier versus Atlanta. So Juwan Johnson versus the Falcons coming off the bye week. He's just been very important for basically the entirety of the season, aside from like a 2 to 3 game stretch. Like you can count on Juwan Johnson to basically give you 10 points. And I would say his upside is like somewhere in that 16 to 18 range. Against the Falcons, it could work out. I just am curious about another week with Tyler Shough at the quarterback position. I know he looked good last time we saw him play, but I'm not convinced that's really who he is. So I'll mitigate the risk a little bit having him here at 15. And then dropping down to our last tier, Theo Johnson's the last guy in here, but I went ahead and included 17 and 18 just as a bonus for you guys. AJ Barner, Colston Loveland. For me, Theo Johnson, I've been saying it for a good portion of this week. I'm fading Giants this week. I do not want to play Giants players. They're going to Detroit, and they're playing them off a loss. That's a bad equation right there. I think they're going to come in really pissed off and probably minimize a lot of what the Giants try to do offensively. Because don't forget this, that defense is really good. the Detroit defense is actually kind of becoming the strength of that squad over there. So I do think Theo Johnson, probably not his best day, could easily be beaten out by A.J. Barner against Tennessee or Colston Loveland versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now let's go to our quarterbacks here. Dropping down to that first tier, Drake May is at number 1, and Lamar's at 2. So here's the thing with May, right? I've been ranking May very generously over the last couple weeks, and it hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been the best. I mean, May is a guy that doesn't have the superb 35-point ceiling of Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, right? That's not really May's game. May, though, is in position to where he always has a very stable floor, and he's playing the Bengals this week. Like, find me faults in that matchup. That's like that is the best matchup. So it's not even just a case of, yeah, he's got the great matchup. He also has the play to back it up. And when I look at Lamar on the other angle, it's like, man, he's injured right now, and I just don't think he's been healthy the entire season. I mean, he just hasn't provided that same level of rushing upside that we're very accustomed to getting with Lamar Jackson. So I do have concerns here as far as Lamar from a rushing perspective, but the matchup at the end of the day is against the Jets. He should be fine if he plays, and I'm kind of expecting him to play. Matt Stafford at number 3 versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. Matchup is also really good. Like I said, when it came to K-Dot with the tight ends, I expect the Rams to win this game. It's at home. It's on Sunday night. It's a primetime game. The Rams are continuing their dominant run. And Stafford's going to continue his MVP level play because the Bucs defense is injured and they've also just been susceptible to the pass all year. So I do think Matt Stafford is definitely a tier 1 quarterback at this point and one you can honestly rely on through the rest of the year. Like, he's been a streaming quarterback. You can rely on Matt Stafford moving forward. Dropping down to that next tier, Brock Purdy's at 4 and Caleb Williams is at 5. So with Brock, I do think that he actually was very close to making it inside of tier 1 because I do see Brock Purdy having that level of upside. I will say this, he didn't have the best game against the Arizona Cardinals from a fantasy perspective. He only had about 20 points, which again, not crapping on that. That's really good production, but I do think there's better weeks moving forward. And I actually think this week is one of them. I think he has a 28-point ceiling in this game. I mean, Carolina, I have just, the prediction is set. I think the 49ers win pretty convincingly against a team that probably is over its head playing on a national level on Monday Night Football. I think Brock Purdy looked healthy last week. He's got his weapons for the most part. The offensive line is holding up okay. I do think Brock Purdy has major upside this week. Caleb Williams, I think, has upside too. But I will tell you this. I'm actually a little nervous about this one. Caleb, to me, feels like he could either do really well against this defense or the Steelers' defense actually comes to play in this one. I don't know. Gut feeling on this one. I just have a feeling the Steelers might come to play. But I'm ending up putting him at 5 here because I've actually got more problems with Mahomes' matchup and Allen's matchup. So with Patrick Mahomes versus Indianapolis, I do think that the Colts defense is very good. Lou Anarumo is a defensive coordinator I've been very complimentary of this year. He shouldn't have been fired by the Bengals. He's good. And I do think that when you look at the talent on the Indianapolis, it's no wonder they're doing so well. They're also coming off a bye week. Now, with Mahomes, he's had a down stretch, I would say. And I don't think it's really debatable actually, but I do think that of course he does have that 25, 30-point upside with him if everything's firing on all cylinders. And I do ultimately think that the Chiefs win this game, so I'm going to lean more towards Mahomes having a decent game. Allen at 7. I might get bitten really bad with this one. But like I said, we're being brutally honest here. Josh Allen, it's a matchup thing with him. Sometimes he doesn't do as well, and we've seen it. He's had 13-point games this year, along with that league-winning performance he just gave last week. So I do think that he's all over the map from that perspective, and Houston's one of the toughest places to play. On a short week, he's got minimal weapons this week with Kincaid out again. And listen, Josh Allen is Superman when they choose to let him do that. But there are weeks where they want to preserve him more. So what does it look like tonight? Either way, my rationale in ranking him this low is because this matchup in Houston is really brutally tough. And I do worry about that. So Josh Allen might bite me right here because I know Josh Allen can win a week, any given week, but I do kind of worry about this matchup a lot. Dropping down to the next tier, Jalen Hurts at 8 and Jackson Dart at 9. Jalen Hurts, man, there's just so many there's so many issues in Philadelphia. Is nobody else paying attention? Like, A.J. Brown obviously is unhappy. Now, there's reports that are coming out that Jalen Hurts is not respected in the locker room by some, and they want to move off him. Now he's answering questions about that at the podium. Man, there's just so many moving parts and so much drama in Philly, and it's like, is that the reason they're playing bad offensively? I don't know. I thought it was the offensive coordinator. I mean, Jalen Hurts, either way, though, not taking advantage of matchups like he should be. So, in theory, this Dallas matchup should be a good one. But I don't trust Jalen Hurts to give you a 30-point ceiling at this point. I think 25 points is on the table, but I also think 12 is on the table. So, I just worry about Jalen Hurts and the consistency because it's been consistently subpar lately. So, I'm a little worried about Jalen Hurts right now. Jackson Dart at 9, I'm expecting him to play. I know there's been some doubt, but I do think he will play this game. It's just going to be tough. Like Detroit, again, I'm fading all Giants, but the one thing that I haven't mentioned is that Jackson Dart is he's kind of exempt from me fading him too much because Dart has provided upside with his legs the entire season. Now, maybe since he got the concussion, it's going to be one of those situations where they're like, hey, listen, we got to have you run less. And maybe he listens to that. But I don't think that they're going to not let him run at all. I think he will be running. So I do have to just say, listen, man, the guy's had so much upside with his legs. I can't rank him much lower than this. Jared Goff in that same matchup, though, versus the Giants, I think it's a bounce-back week. Like, Goff has been hot and cold all year. And he hasn't really been the same fantasy quarterback that he was last year because Ben Johnson is gone, and that leaves a huge impact. But I do think that ultimately, at the end of the day, this is going to be a good matchup for him because Jared Goff in this team at home versus the Giants defense, which can easily be beaten over the top. I imagine that they will absolutely get over the hump, get that bad taste out of their mouths this week. Goff leads them to a really good victory and is a top 10 quarterback this week. Jacoby Brissett at number 11 to round out this tier, and he's taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars at home this week. Jacoby Brissett's done nothing but put up 20-point performances. Like, that's the reality. He is a very reliable starting quarterback right now. Very reliable. So I don't have any problem with playing Jacoby Brissett in this game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've said all week, I do think that there's a chance that they could win this game. I think that Jacksonville traveling to the West Coast, probably not ideal for them. I think Jacoby Brissett has done fine. And last week, he didn't even have Marvin, and he did great too. So I think Jacoby Brissett is going to continue to just do 20 points a game. And possibly this is even too low of a ranking for him. Dropping down to our next tier, we've got Baker Mayfield at number 12 and Joe Flacco at 13. So Baker Mayfield is going to Los Angeles, take on the Rams on that Sunday night game. I see good things for the Rams, not as good for the Bucs. Bucs just have so many injuries to the offensive line, to their their playmakers. They've just got so many problems that they're dealing with, and I just worry about Baker being able to stand upright this whole game. And Baker just hasn't had that many great performances in fantasy. I don't think that that's going to change this week at the Los Angeles Rams. That defense is really good. I mean, they just made Sam Darnold look like the Jets version of himself. And I do think that Baker is probably not in for his best game this week. Still start worthy, still startable, but I don't think he's a top 10 to top 5 quarterback this week. Joe Flacco at 13, I'm sticking with him. I don't think that Joe Burrow is going to play. I get it. He practiced in full on Wednesday in 11-on-11 drills. Totally understand it. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. And Joe Burrow, honestly, probably be around the same range. It doesn't have to do with the matchup. It's mostly just because of the fact that Burrow is typically someone who starts slow. And Flacco, if he does play, I do think that the guy's banged up. I mean, the guy is clearly banged up. TJ Watt landed on his shoulder last week. So now both shoulders are bothering. 40-year-old man, no offensive line to protect him. This does feel like it's falling a little bit, and the house of cards is starting to get kind of chipped away at. So I am worried about Flacco for the remainder of the season, as long as he's their starter. Sam Darnold at 14, I think has a bounce-back performance. It's at Tennessee. I mean, what really more do you need to say? The Titans defense, they can't do anything because their offense also can't do anything as well. So ultimately, their defense is out there for the majority of the game, and then Sam Darnold, I think, has a bounce-back game and slices them up. Their coordinator is going to want to inject confidence into him after a really ugly week. I see them as just kind of taking advantage of the Titans defense and the weaknesses that they've had over the top this year. So Sam Darnold, to me, massive bounce-back game, and honestly, could be too low ranked. Dropping down to that last tier, Dak lands at 15 and Daniel Jones lands at 16. Like I said, brutal honest truths is what this whole week has been about. I'm tired of tiptoeing around certain players and certain matchups. Listen, Dak is a very hot and cold player. It's very much like if you look at the game log, his worst game this year was against Philly. And that was before Philly's defense is what they are today. So I don't care that it's in Dallas, man. Dak is going to have a rough one in this game. It's going to be rough. Like, Dak just played the Raiders. And you're trying to tell me that that's the equivalent of what we could get versus the Eagles? It's just not the same. So Dak, to me, I'm not trying to insult people who have Dak. Obviously, he's a high upside quarterback. But I think this week is where we'll hit more of a floor game of around 10 to 12 points. Daniel Jones at 16 at Kansas City this week. I think that ultimately the problem is matchup. And I do think that even off a bye week, he will struggle in this game. Either throwing an interception or just not being as accurate. I do think they're going to make him look a little small in this game because Kansas City's in a must-win position. So I'm worried about Daniel Jones. I'm worried about Dak. That's why they're down here in the bottom tier. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below. And if you want to see the full top 30 running back rankings on the week, click on this video right here.